Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun. This is our Only Murders in the Building, Season 4, Episode 2, Reaction and Review. Jan is back. Insert exclamation point here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, she's escaped, she's out in the world. Jan is my agent of chaos. And it was really nice to see her in the mix here because I think a lot of us felt that she's on the suspect list of who killed Sazz, but looking at killing Charles and that he is actually the target. And yeah, top of the list, Jan, she's already tried to kill him, you know?
Tip of the cap to Only Murders in the Building here, because the second straight week I have been legitimately surprised by something. I did not expect Scott Bakula in the premiere. I did not expect Jan in episode 2. I will throw that out there as well.
I didn't expect her episode 2. I did expect her this season. She's been around in some shape or form for every single season, but I can't even say how excited I was when she jumped out of that closet. I didn't even have an inside voice anymore. It was so exciting.
Is it even remotely believable that somehow she managed to escape from prison using all of the things in which she suggested? No, but we are living in an Only Murders in the Building world here, where last week they magically put together an entire movie before getting the life rights to any of the people who are going to star in it.
And listen, there's a lot of unbelievable stuff on this show, but nothing's going to be more unbelievable than that. We're
Done.
going to pour millions into a movie 3 weeks before we're about to shoot and no life rights.
Okay, I mean, this is a really, really good episode. And for everybody out there, you fellow sleuths, like there are a number of new suspects
Yep.
that have entered the picture.
Yep.
We're going to talk all about them, Dudenoff, so much more. But before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are here 3 times a week for all of your Only Murders in the Building needs. Every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, we have a review. Later that day, a preview. And then every Wednesday, we have a theory discussion that is going up here at the channel. So hit that subscribe button.
Also, if you're looking for other murder mystery type content, we have Slow Horses coming up, and The Old Man's going to be coming up shortly after that. We're also going to be covering The Penguin, which is, obviously Batman, but also crime. So we're going to be covering that over on our Patreon, and it's an exclusive over there. So you have to join our Patreon to be able to see those reviews, and we'll leave a link for you below. It's a way that not only do you get to see The Penguin, but you also get to support us, which is, something that we really appreciate so much. And thank you so much to everyone who has joined our Patreon.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, let's just get into my agent of chaos, Jan, because I think she really brought a lot of light to what is going on here. I mean, Charles wasn't sure if he was the target or not. He was kind of in a bit of denial about it. We had Mabel, Oliver really trying to be like, this is a possibility, but he was so much in his grief that he just couldn't really process anything else. But I think her being there just made everything a lot more real. The person who tried to kill you is here being like, someone is trying to kill you. It was you.
I like that Jan did not try to kill Charles in this instance and also gave a reason why. This is because of her affection towards Sazz. She's not going to do that again. However, they also made Charles's reactions incredibly believable. My favorite moment, comedy-wise, of the entire episode is Charles putting the entire batch of knives into the dishwasher and turning it on, including, the wooden block that all the knives go into. There was a lot of humor that was there. And, Steve Martin's always great at the physical comedy, but at the same time, it did give Charles, I think, a little bit of needed perspective so that he's not just talking to, his own ghostly version of Sazz throughout a lot of this.
Yeah, I think that Jan is a real reality check, and she keeps him honest in a lot of ways with stuff like that, because Charles can be in his own world a lot of the time, and she is very much grounded in this reality of someone who tried to kill him, like a very real thing that almost happened to him. They were almost not having this conversation. And she brought him a lot of information as well. Something that some of you guys in the comments have brought up as well, that maybe the incinerator thing and the secret passages and a lot of information about the building has been said on the podcast. And she confirmed that, where she was like, thanks for season 2 of your podcast. Now I know that there are secret passages in the walls, and that's how I'm here.
Yeah, I think it does spell out a good bit about how either the killer or the person who hired the killer, or a lot of these finer details, things we have been talking about
Mhm.
since the end of last season, how some of this came together because for some reason, because we don't see a lot of characters actively listening to the podcast on the show, it's been a while since we've seen the super fan group turn up
Yeah,
here.
where are they?
I kind of forget that the
It's us.
podcast, yeah, it's we are taking over, guys. I kind of forget that the podcast is something that people are out there actively listening to, so everybody would know about the passages
Mhm.
or X, Y, or Z. But I think through most of this episode, Charles is trying to be in a relative amount of denial over something that, we have speculated about since the end of last season, and that's the idea that Charles is probably the intended target for what happened at his apartment.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is Charles the intended target for the whole show? We're
Mm-hmm.
going to be having a theory video coming up talking more about the long game. That was something that we saw in the premiere. It was written on that golf piece of paper on Sass's desk that
Yeah.
just said long game on it. And it's kind of gotten us thinking, like, Charles has been almost killed like every single season.
Yeah.
That it's like, is the whole show going to end up kind of tying together where Charles has been kind of a target throughout the whole thing? And really, this whole show is about how is Charles going to get killed in this whole thing?
Yeah.
We're going to have a video coming up on Wednesday about that. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and keep your eye out for that, because we're going to dive in really deep into what is the long game. What is the long game in this season? What is the long game entirely when it comes to Charles? But I think Jan and Charles and a lot of the talk that they had, I think also helped Charles in a lot of way, because we saw him really diving into his grief. That whole opening sequence with him having Sazz on his hands and him wanting to try to preserve her. I know there was like a little bit of comedy with it, but there was a real sadness about it where he was like, no, I can't, tears in his eyes. I can't just wash her down the drain. Like, how am I going to be able to preserve her in some sort of way? He's not ready to let go. It's all brand new. He's trying to wash her into this jar and keep her there. And then he's sort of having these hallucinations of Sazz around him, which is something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, I'm a former funeral director, and that is part of grief. Sometimes think you see or hear somebody who's passed away when you're in your grief, and it helps kind of deal with it a little bit. Like that whole last scene with the two of them
Mm-hmm.
sitting there talking with each other, and how she's like, you're my best friend. He's like, you're my best friend. I was like, oh my God, my heart is breaking. But I think that talk with Jan was really important too, because for Jan, she was she escaped because she hadn't heard from Sazz and was like, I'm really worried about her. The last time I talked to her, she said she had something really like heavy on her mind, something was wrong, and then I never heard from her again, so I killed this guard and here I am.
I think really this episode is so important. And yes, there's the mystery aspect of it that we'll get into. But in terms of Sazz, she's been just a joke for a lot of the season. And I don't mean joke in like she's not a serious person, but she's just used for comedic effect. But this episode, I think, was essential in sort of showing how deeply important Sazz is to Charles. And that's why we got the flashbacks. That's why we got the scenes of Ghost Sazz. And Jane Lynch, like, there's a reason Jane Lynch has worked for decades in this industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's really good at playing these like sarcastic, biting characters. But even when she was Sue Sylvester, like, there's still like that ability she has to really get deep and raw and personal and vulnerable, and having that sort of back and forth with Charles that sort of shows that she took it very seriously, the responsibility that came with being his stunt man and protecting him at all
Mhm.
costs. And even her final move in some ways is protecting him, even if she didn't know it at the time. And that message of, tap in. I like that the blood message is actually something that's really, really personal. It's not some sort of big clue, but it's just something that makes us feel even more for these two characters.
Yeah, it's nice to have something a bit deeper with Sazz. You're right. She has been there for comedic relief for most of this, but this was a pretty serious episode for a not as serious show. Talking about, oh man, there hasn't been a lot of work for me. It's not a lot of work for a 6-foot stunt woman,
Mm-hmm.
So this it explains more why she really dove into Charles's life the way that she did, where it was like, he gave me my start, he gave me my career, he gave me my everything. Like, this is the guy. This is someone that I'm in to protect. That, when he gets to the danger, I can tap him and be like, I'm tapping in, you're out, let me protect you. So that last message of her being like, tap in, to be like, it's your turn to come in for me and help me. It was this episode had me like almost crying throughout the whole thing.
You
I was
know?
like, oh my God. It's so touching because
Yeah.
Charles, especially after talking to Jan, where Jan was like, oh yeah, somebody's definitely trying to kill you. This isn't about Sazz, this is about you.
Mhm.
That he just couldn't leave his house. He was just having such a difficult time functioning. He couldn't even go downstairs to get the luminol. Like, he couldn't do anything. But I think that last message of tap in, I've done this for you for decades. It's time for you to tap in and help me and figure out what's going on, I think is really important, especially now that it feels like Jan is cleared. She is not the killer. Let us know in the comments if you think she is the killer anymore. Yes or no. And I think the biggest thing for me that made me feel like Jan's not the killer this season is that she was talking about the use of the sniper, and that she was kind of like, oh, I think it's really cheap. Like, I would never do that because for me, it's like an intimate thing. I want to be there. I want to watch the life go out of their eyes. And we know that that's true with her because we've already seen her kill. So for her to say that and be like, I would never, like, that's cheap. Stop it. Don't even think. It makes a lot of sense unless it's a situation where she's desperate and she was still in jail at that time and was like, I can't do it myself, so I have to hire somebody. Do you think it's Jan, or do you think she's cleared for this season?
I think she's cleared for this season. I'm willing to go so far as to say that, as insofar as Charles being a target goes, I think she's cleared for the rest of the series because she made it
Oh,
very clear that Sazz would not want her to kill Charles, and at least so long as she's willing to honor Sazz, and I don't know, maybe something comes up that causes her to change her mind, but so long as
yeah,
this,
Sazz is, if Sazz is dead, and I know that there's lots of theories out
yeah,
there that she is not, and this is some sort of setup. If she's actually dead, then what is she not killing Charles for anymore?
I just think that, Sazz loved Charles. Jan, you're not going to want to do this. No, I think that so long as she's out there on the lam, and, we don't know exactly what Jan's future's going to be now
Yeah.
that she has escaped, but this is going to be something that people float around and talk about. And to me, I only want to see it happen where she's an actual killer again on the show, unless it's something really, really dynamic or there's a bigger motive beyond just, oh, she's a killer, this is what she does.
I've seen a theory out there that I love, and
Hmm.
I hope that this is it. I've only seen it out there a couple of times, but if season 5 ends up being the last season, that Jan is the last victim of the show, that it
Hmm.
starts with Jan and it ends with Jan, that she won't come back as a killer, but she's going to come back as the last victim.
Yeah, I like that theory too. I like that theory even more than the ones that are sort of coursing out there, that there is this like Moriarty like figure that is kind of behind everything on the show, which
Mhm.
on paper, yes, awesome. In reality, good luck trying to explain that. I already had a hard enough time trying to figure out why Poppy did what she did in season 2, and I'm still not quite there with that. That's
Yeah.
still the weakest reveal out of the entire show to me, but I just feel like it would be really, really difficult to pull that off.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty difficult to pull that off. But I do think that a lot of it is around Charles. And this season in particular, I mean, we had the movie at the very beginning of this whole premiere that Charles was watching, and it's about revenge. So is it possible that there is somebody that's been kind of around planning something for a long time, and this is the revenge where it's like, okay, we're gonna kill people around you, we're gonna do things around you, everything that you care about I'm gonna take away from you, and then I'm gonna come for you.
It's all really, really interesting to talk about. I mean, Charles, for a guy who was the I think it was eighth most handsome TV crime solver in like the late 1980s, he has managed to have a lot of enemies. He has managed to have a lot of really, really bad luck through most of this episode, both, and it's because they care about him, but both
Mhm.
Mabel and Oliver are treating him like he's a 4-year-old in his house, where they're just saying, good job staying on hold. Good job sitting here. You're doing a great job with the hold. And I understand why. It's a very different dynamic than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, he's in grief. I mean, everybody deals with grief in different
Hmm.
ways, and I think also just him dealing with the grief of losing his best friend, somebody he really cared about, and then on top of it, you got Mabel and Oliver that are like, "We think you could have been the target." Like it's too much all at once, and they realized it right away, and they tried to back out that door where they're like, "Okay, we piled too much on Charles. Charles is about to break apart. Like
Yeah.
we need to be the people that go over to the West Tower and deal with the crew over there." Oh my God. Okay, we're gonna get into the
Yes.
Sauce family and Stink Eye Joe and Mr. Christmas and all those guys. But I am gonna say right off the bat that I don't think any of them are actually the killer, if I'm being honest.
Ooh, okay. See, I
You guys let us know in the comments. Matt, who do you think? I know you want it to be Richard Kind so bad.
okay.
I can feel it.
This is the thing. I love Richard Kind. His proper full name, character actor Richard Kind. I just want him to cook. Like that's really the thing. I know we have the
He
Sauce
did.
family is the ones who are actually cooking in this episode, but I love Richard Kind. I would love him to have a lot of really, really great material. The
Mhm.
problem, of course, with the Westies here being the killer is just for now, we don't really have any motive for any of them. Like I'm sticking with what I said in the premiere, which is that I think the actual killer is somebody who's working on the movie to some extent. And I don't
Mhm.
necessarily think like the brothers or any of the big name actors, but somebody who maybe has gotten on there in a smaller capacity, who may mostly join the movie in order to try to sabotage it or be close to Charles. Because yes, these characters are really, really wacky. But from what we have seen from old Stink Eye Joe, aka Vince Fish, so far,
Mr. Pink Eye.
he does not feel like he is capable of something like this. I'm not actually
Oh.
sure I'm confident enough in his ability to read a newspaper to me because he is just all over the place all the time.
Okay, listen, we didn't really get to see Mr. Christmas much more than him lifting weights and eating a candy cane. Like
Yeah,
right now, he's just kind of a ha ha. But obviously, he's part of something because let's get into this Dudenoff apartment that looks like either whoever was renting this place, because this is the place that's rented. They've said that everyone over on
yes.
the website is renting their places. So whoever's renting this either has a lot of money and just doesn't care that this is being rented because it is not lived in,
Mhm.
or this person just died and they're not there anymore and the estate is still like renting this place or having this place. I don't know what is going on with Dudenoff yet. None of us really know. All we know is that this place is not lived in by anybody. However, tinfoil hats,
Yep.
this place is
Yep.
definitely being used by all the neighbors, and
Yep.
I think that that's why they all got, very shifty when we had Oliver and Mabel over there asking questions about that place, saying, "Oh, there's like a pin keypad there. Like,
Mhm.
who's in this place?" And everyone's like, "Oh, nobody. It's nothing. It's fine." But it looks like a murder room. Like, it looks like, yeah, somebody died in there. It's just whatever. But when they finally go in there, it's like, oh, there's some tinsel in here. So Mr. Christmas is probably using this place. They found, the paint chips. So all of these windows are painted shut. So I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe not Vince. I mean, he's like, oh, I can't open mine. Mine is painted shut. Then he might not have the power to open any of them. And then there's a little pig that's in the bathroom in there. And the Sauce family had a ham hanging from their bathroom. So it feels like these people over there are using this apartment for all their nefarious stuff. I think the Sauce family is raising pigs to eat in there. I don't know what Mr. Christmas is doing in there. I think Vince is using that place. I think everyone's just kind of like, we know that either Dudenoff is dead and he's not using this place, or he or she is never around, so we can use this place. Or Dudenoff is like, you guys can use this place, make it look like it's lived in by going in and out.
Okay, here's my theory as to where things stand with this place for now, because they've established, as you said, everybody on the West Tower here, they have to pay rent. So they do
Yeah.
not own these apartments. And we all know how high the cost of living is in New York City. It is basically through the roof. It's beyond through the roof. So anybody is going to do whatever they can to get a little bit of extra money. I
Right.
think Dudenoff is paying these people to keep this secret for him. And he's also saying, okay, you know what? You can use the place here or there, but if somebody ends up asking questions, like, the police shows up or whatever, like, they all have to have some real skin in the game to keep this secret, especially if Dudenoff is using this place for nefarious purposes, in this case, the potential murder of Charles Hayden Savage.
Yeah, it just feels like whoever used that place to shoot across the way, eventually it was going to be figured out that somebody took a shot at that apartment, because whoever shot at that apartment did not do anything really about that bullet hole in the window except give a note to Lester to be like, "Oh, could you change out my window? There's a hole and it looks exactly like a bullet hole." Like, whoever this person is that sniped is not very good at the cleanup part of it, but man, their shot is perfect. So it's kind of like, then would it be Dudenoff? And we don't know we don't even know if they're alive. We don't know who they are, whatever. But would they shoot him from their own apartment? Like, it seems like kind of a not a thing.
No,
Unless they just truly don't care and they're like, yeah, come get me.
this apartment is just the place where bad things happen, and it is and the cost of having a place to do bad things is you have to pay people to keep your secret. And I think the idea of them all going in and using it, like,
Hmm.
that also makes a good bit of sense when you think about, not only are New York apartments expensive, they're
Yep.
also pretty small. In reality,
Yeah.
they're much smaller than even Only Murders is making it out to be. This is sort of the old Friends apartment dilemma. It's like, how do you people afford any of this? But
Yeah.
I think there's really a lot going on here when it comes to what these people are using this for, how deep the secrets go. Even they're even lying about some little things, because the
Mhm.
Sauce family here, they go into how this ham is Portuguese ham, that they have imported it from No, you didn't. You have a pig in the other
I
room. Why are you lying about this? Unless this is just some random pet pig you like, I don't really think that's the case here, guys.
No, I mean, they're very obviously hiding secrets. And I think that that's what it is. The apartment is being used for nefarious stuff. Either whoever Dudenoff is knows that they're doing it, or they don't know that they're doing it. But I think the group of neighbors knows what has happened to Dudenoff. Either they know he or she is dead and is using that place, or they've been given permission to do it and they know where this person is. I think Dudenoff is clearly going to come into some sort of play because Sazz had that name written on her desk as well. So who is Dudenoff and are they connected to the movie?
I think
Question mark.
I think Dudenoff is connected to the movie in some shape or form. Dudenoff may not be the killer, but Dudenoff may be the person who hired the killer, who found a way to make this happen. Because clearly, if Dudenoff can pay to, keeping the tinfoil hat on here, if Dudenoff can pay in order to make sure that Vince Fish and the Sauce family and Mr. Christmas, that they all keep the secret of this place, he can certainly afford to hire somebody to take out Charles. And beyond all that, I mean, not only is Dudenoff written on the murder board here, but
Mhm.
so is the name of the card game that they are all playing. So that tells me that, okay, Dudenoff had to engage in the card game with these other
Mhm.
people at some point. It's
Right.
either that or one of these other people is the killer, which, like we've said, we don't really seem to think that that is the case.
Yeah, I don't think we're in episode 2.
Yeah.
Episode 2, 3, 4, if the formula is staying kind of the same, is typically when we get people that could maybe be the killer, but they never are.
Yeah, no,
This is the red herring era of the show.
yeah, and that's fine. I want there to be a really good, compelling reason why all of this is going down in the first place. I mean, it seems like the only motive we have for any of these people right now is, forgive me for not knowing your names, but Papa Sauce may be a little bit upset that Mama Sauce has got a thing for Charles and likes to watch him, and maybe he's a little bit jealous. But that was just played so much for comedy that it just doesn't seem like there's any chance in the world that's actually happening.
No, I do not think that that is the reason. And then I would still have to be convinced that Papa Sauce either has enough money to hire
Yeah.
somebody who's gonna sniper them, which, they're over there renting in New York is expensive, so I don't think
Yeah.
that would be the case, or they would have to be efficient with a sniper. And I'm not someone who knows a lot about that, but I would think that that's a really specialty type thing to use, and not everybody can use that.
Okay, I have a larger question.
Especially
Yeah.
that perfectly, where the shot is perfect through the window and straight into Sazz's chest.
Yeah, I can't even do that in video games. Like, it takes a lot of training. My larger question to all of you out there, especially those of you who have lived in these big high-rise apartments or whatever, do you guys actually see what's going on with your neighbors like this all the time? Because I gotta tell you, as somebody who's lived in apartments, I try to intentionally hide from people seeing me. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to look at other neighbors. But these people are all like, oh, Charles looks at us all the time. Oh, we look at Charles all the time.
Yeah, it feels like they all ended up looking out at Charles, because Charles clearly stands in his window looking at people a lot. I mean, even Mama Sauce is like, I see him looking at me all the time, so I'm in here all the time making sauces because I see him looking out his window at me. And, we know that he does that even from season 1, because he was looking out the window and, saw Jan. So,
Yeah. So we have these people and we've gotten a chance to get to meet them to a certain extent. But the tricky thing about this episode in general, as good as it is that so much of the premiere was based around the movie. And now we've gone to this other extreme where, yeah, the movie was mentioned, but so much of this episode was about the Arconia that it then sort of makes you feel like, are all of these things red herrings? Like, I don't think the movie is, but it's still, the lack of focus on the movie has got me bouncing a little all over the place now.
I'm so happy that these first 2 episodes are really about the Arconia and Sazz. Like we've said, we know that Sazz has been kind of this comedic presence on the show and not
Yeah.
as serious. But this is someone who's really serious to Charles, and is someone who died in this building. So if they were just off in LA, riding around a limo with their in and out, and that's all that's happening, and his best friend is gone, I just feel like it would be really taking away from the season, like it did for me in season 3, where it's like, okay, someone has died, and I
Hmm.
know that they're not connected as like friendship, best friendship, family, somebody like that, but it's like the star of the play has died and nobody's really dealing with it. They're like, the show must go on, let's have this musical number and that musical number. It's just kind of like, okay, well, what about the murder, right?
Yeah.
So, and here we are now. It feels like they took our notes and it's like, okay, we're back. We're back in the building. We got our trio looking into things. This is a little more personal because
Yeah.
it's Sazz, and we're going to be back in the building. So now that we're 2 episodes in, if they decide in the 3rd episode to bring in more, we haven't seen, any previews or synopsis or anything yet while recording this. I know there's interviews out there with, even about Scott. We've been talking
Yeah.
about the fact that Scott could come back and be the killer, and one of the co-creators kind of like, it's just a one and done, it's fine. That gets misled in articles and in interviews all the time. I can't even say how many times a creator has come out and been like, no, this would never happen. We're done with that. And then at the end of the whole season, it's all back and it's like, surprise. And I hope that that's what's happening. And you guys are just surprising us. And it could be, right? But
Yeah.
it's just, I like it that this season so far is back in the building. It's a good focus on Sazz. This episode needed to happen for me, for it to feel as deep and dark as it is for Charles to lose someone where it's like, she's my best friend. She's the person who, she invited everybody to my house to play poker. And then I had these Friday night poker nights forever. And I would have never made those friends if it wasn't for her. Like, she had my back on set and had my back in life. Yeah, she stole my women, but she also had my back.
Okay, but before we go here, I got to give out a stealth MVP of this episode. And the stealth MVP by far is Divine Joy Randolph, who has maybe 30 seconds of screen time as Detective Williams. She comes in and she makes a souffle in these 30 seconds. She comes in immediately, is going 110, listing off all the different things that Jan does in prison, then finds out why you didn't call the police. Oh, then sees that Charles is on hold with 911. She is so good in this tiny, every single thing that she said made me laugh. I don't know how she filmed this because she just came in and said the most ridiculous things immediately about the manipulation that Jan was. I love her. I know Divine's a bigger and bigger name these days. I don't know how much we're gonna see her, but I just that made me laugh so hard.
Oh, she's so funny. I was really happy to see her.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's what we got here about episode 2 of Only Murders in the Building, season 4. As Jess lined up earlier, though, we have a big theory video coming about the long game and how much all of this has been planned. There's a lot of really interesting stuff to dive into there. So be sure that you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss it. Also, join our Patreon, as Jess noted earlier as well. We are covering the Penguin exclusively over there all season. Thank you so much to our patrons for your support.
You.
And we'll see you here next time.